What if your mind breaking open is actually the start of something bigger? This surreal journey through time, memory, and identity will make you question everything about sanity and will literally leave you undone. But beyond such fantastical weave of events, Undone at its core is a story about family and healing, even though it's not the easy kind. The first season opens with Alma visibly upset. As she drives her car with no apparent intention of slowing down, something strange catches her eye on the side of the road, and this distraction causes the accident, which breaks her mind open. But before the story proceeds, it flashes back to Alma's life. Tired of her boring, repetitive daily life, she goes through the motions of waking up, showering, plugging her cochlear implant, eating, and more activities without much purpose. She rants about this to her younger sister Becca in a bar. However, unlike Alma, Becca excitedly announces her engagement to her wealthy boyfriend Reed. Alma playfully teases her about this, but their conversation soon shifts to their dead father. Knowing it's Becca's special day, they still cheerfully end the day with a couple of drinks. Later that night, Alma drunkenly goes home and tells her boyfriend Sam that she doesn't want to end up like Becca. She doesn't want to be trapped in a life of boring couples who get married and settle down. Sam humors her for a bit before they sleep. The next day, Alma wakes up to her usual routine. At the daycare where she works, Alma watches over the kids. During this time, one kid makes a mess and needs a timeout. To appease her, Alma shares an odd, imaginative story about sitting in a cave for years until they're ready to face the outside world. But as usual, her day ends similarly to how it always does. The following day, Alma visits her mother, Camila, who's busy looking through old pictures. Among them, Alma finds a picture of her grandmother, Geraldine, and later a picture of her dad smoking. Surprised that her dad used to smoke, Alma asks her mom about it. However, Camila brushes it off, and Alma leaves with that picture of her dad. That night, they get ready for Becca's engagement party. Alma skips the dress and instead draws a mustache on her face. When they arrive, Camila openly disapproves of Alma's antics. Unlike Camila, Reed appreciates the mustache. As their families celebrate, Reed gives an awkward yet sincere speech about his love for Becca. On the way home, Alma tells Sam that she loves him, and he does too. However, Alma insists they should talk. In the following days, Alma proceeds with her usual routine. But on the night with Becca at their usual bar, Alma reveals how she broke up with Sam. She admits to Becca her fear of ending up like their schizophrenic grandmother, Geraldine. Becca fires back at Alma for sabotaging her life out of jealousy and fear of moving forward. Their argument drives Alma to borrow her sister's ring, pretending she's engaged. Acting like Becca did before, she calls for shots. Seeing their festive atmosphere, the bartender joins in. The three bring home the party to Alma's place, with them drinking, playing truth or dare, and making irreversible choices. At church the following morning, Becca arrives late with a hungover. At Alma's teasing, she immediately leaves despite just getting there. Seeing this, Alma follows her outside and the sisters argue. Alma claims that she's only trying to help Becca, but Becca turns this around on her, saying Alma doesn't even know what's wrong with her. Alma tears up at this, saying she knows, and returns Becca's ring. Now, we loop back to the start of the series, where Alma drives. This time, we see that the figure on the side of the road that just materialized is Alma's dead father. Alma wakes up in the hospital after her car crash. She looks to the side and sees her father calmly reading a newspaper. Her mind recalls a Halloween night back when she was still young. Becca complains about wanting Alma's sock, and their father, Jacob, diffuses the brewing argument by making pretend socks for Becca using the newspaper he's reading. That same night, Alma wants more candies, so she and her dad head out without telling Camila. As they talk about Dorothy and the witch from The Wizard of Oz, Jacob suddenly receives a call from his assistant. With a sense of urgency, he instructs his daughter to stay there and wait for him. Returning to the present, Alma wakes up again in the hospital, seeing her mom and sister. She looks again at the side and sees her father there. After a while, Alma sits up and Camila and Becca talk to her. She sarcastically replies to them. When Jacob comments about something, Alma looks at him, but unlike her, Becca doesn't see anyone in the nearby chair. Seeing Becca's confused look, Alma changes the subject, saying Sam needs a tux for Becca's wedding. Though surprised, Becca simply tells Alma to rest some more. Alma looks out the window, confused that the outside is flashing by. When she asks if it is a dream, Becca and Jacob simultaneously deny it. However, Jacob corrects himself, claiming it's partly a dream. The scene suddenly cuts to a man telling Alma to tell him if she needs anything. Just then, her boss from work visits. The scene shifts as if they are outside. They talk briefly, and Alma mentions that he's visiting before her boyfriend does. This comment confuses her boss, since the guy who just left is Sam. It is only then that Alma realizes that it was indeed Sam. The scene changes again. This time, she talks to her dad about being in a weird loop. Seeing her confusion, Jacob does his best to explain how her perception of time and space got distorted because of the accident. After explaining, Jacob says he needs her help and wants her to agree. Everything around them suddenly shakes, as Jacob says he won't let her leave until she agrees to help him. Alma is suddenly thrown off amidst the destruction of her surroundings. She loops back to her hospital room, where Camila repeats her words when Alma regained consciousness. Recognizing the beginning of a loop, Alma Alma's surroundings shatter, and she runs to the elevator, seeing herself pressing keys. She tells the other her on the elevator to press it, but the other is obviously agitated. However, when she runs for it, she's looped back to her hospital room and sees time quickly passing by and looping back in the form of her mother, growing old, dying, reverting to a baby, and doing it all over again. Jacob reappears and grounds her to let her make sense of everything. Alma can't help asking about her grandmother, Geraldine. Jacob assures Alma that she's not losing her mind and that what they have is a gift. What they can do is develop Alma's potential. However, Alma is unsure, so Jacob resets the loop. This time, she finds herself pushing the elevator keys while the other her tells her to press the button. Soon, she loops back to the hospital room again. Trusting herself to be the only real thing there, Alma convinces herself that she's at home, and her environment soon changes. But this crumbles fast, and she returns to her hospital room. Jacob says she's pushing herself too hard and advises her on adjusting to it. Seeing her like this, he admits to causing the accident because he really needs her help. Jacob then reveals that on the night of his death, he was killed. With Alma's ability, he hopes that she can change it, and the first step is agreeing to it. Alma recalls that Halloween night once more. She remembers waiting for her dad, getting home in a police car, and finding out that her dad's forever gone. Soon, Alma reawakens to find herself at the start of the same looping scene. This time, she calmly talks to her mom and sister without snapping. Time finally flows, and Jacob compliments her on the good job. However, Alma still feels somber at the fact that her dad wasn't there for her all those years. Jacob apologizes and can only hope that Alma won't abandon him. He speaks of how Alma can choose to tune it all out and simply live her life, or, if she wishes, they can go with the unconventional option that doesn't have limitations. Alma wakes up at dawn, standing outside, confused and disoriented. A neighbor yells at her, but Alma can't fully hear without her cochlear implant. She rushes home where Sam teases her for sleepwalking again, but Alma isn't sure that's all it is. As she returns home, she notices the photos on the wall might be out of order, but Sam shrugs it off. That day, Alma returns to her daycare work, still bruised and sore from the crash. She tries to reconnect with the kids, but sees a strange moment when one child is drowning. Seeing her zoning out, her boss suggests she take more time off, but Alma insists she's ready to get back to normal. Jacob suddenly appears, surprising her. To help her further understand things, he uses blocks and metaphors to explain how she perceives time differently. However, the conversation soon turns into an argument, and they circle back to how someone killed Jacob. Alma soon returns to the present, finding that she's losing touch with reality. It is to the point that her boss needs to call her boyfriend to make sure she's okay. But before she and Sam can talk more about it, Alma slips into Jacob's memory of him teaching about time traveling in a theoretical physics lecture. After the lecture, he privately speaks with his research assistant about his discovery in the connection between quantum entanglement and time travel. Unlike what Jacob intends for her to learn, Alma questions her dad's relationship with his assistant. Back to reality, it is another day at work. Alma talks to her boss, and he agrees to give Alma another shot. Meanwhile, Jacob appears again, and Alma voices her concerns about how their lessons affect her reality. Understanding what she wants, their surroundings suddenly change into her mother's attic. Looking around, Jacob finds and gives her a small digital blackjack game, explaining how it'll help anchor her to the physical realm. Just then, Camila calls Alma down. It is only then that Jacob explains how they jumped days ahead. He even casually remarks how Alma can easily return to those days if she wishes to. Later, Alma joins Camila and Becca for a wedding dress shopping trip. She actively uses the game her dad gave her to keep tethered to the present. However, when Alma brings up going to the bar, Becca shouts something that causes Alma to flash into another time and space. This time, it's a vision involving his dad's research assistant. Alma grounds herself with the blackjack game, but entirely misses what Becca said. At home, Alma notices that not only are the pictures moved, but so is the couch. Sam denies it, and Alma lets it go. However, Alma suddenly confronts him about Becca, and he avoids the question. The next day at work, Alma uses the game to stay present. Her sudden vision of a child in danger prompts her to advise the child's mother about keeping her child away from water and having her child get swimming lessons. That night, Alma starts digging into Jacob's old research that she took from her mom's attic. Now convinced that her dad was murdered, she focuses on cracking the case. The following day, Jacob continues to train Alma. He challenges her to move the keys on the table without using her body or mind. Jacob reminds her it's not about mind power, but about time. Alma stares at the keys on the kitchen counter for what feels like hours. In reality, only seconds pass. Time stretches and warps, where only she and her dad are unaffected. Soon, they reach a time when the keys appear and disappear. Returning to reality, Camila confronts Alma about the stuff she took from her attic. They get into an argument, but Alma suddenly zones out to a past where her parents are fighting. She soon returns to reality and she compromises with Camila. She promises to see someone as long as she can keep everything she took from her mom's attic. Soon, Alma meets with one and is given a prescription. Seeing her mom waiting, Alma claims they are for allergies. With that out of the way, Alma refocuses on looking at the past. Jacob reappears, noticing Alma looking at old newspaper clippings. He says she's looking at it the wrong way and should focus on the research itself. While they discuss this, Camila suddenly visits Alma. She uses this opportunity to take Alma's prescription and have it filled. That same night, Alma suddenly finds herself naked in front of her daycare class. But Jacob clarifies that it is a dream, and he brought her there to make it easier for her to train. They soon return to moving keys, and Alma really tries not to try. They move through time, making it possible. Jacob further explains how this can even result in stopping how he is murdered. Seeing Alma's improvement, Jacob brings her to a memory of his. He shares with Alma his suspicions about their research sponsor and how they were threatened when they decided to cut their ties with them. The scene soon jumps to how the accident happens with Alma at the passenger seat. She escapes this vision using the digital blackjack. Realizing her dependence on her dad's old device, Alma wants to be tethered to reality without relying on it too much. So, Jacob gives her another lesson about not letting her emotions get to her. He encourages Alma to try but not try. Seeing her confusion, Jacob suggests meditation. Alma does this, and they soon look through memories carrying deep emotions. It is to the point that she can even look through the emotionally charged memories of Geraldine and Jacob. Soon, she reaches the part where her parents are arguing. As Alma tries to make sense of it, Camila calls her back to reality with the prescribed medicine on hand. Alma realizes what her mom has done and tells her to leave. Now emotionally charged, she grounds herself with the method her dad taught her and manages to get past it. That same night, Alma prepares dinner by cutting carrots. As she does, she accidentally cuts her finger. Focused on the pain, she suddenly rewinds time before it happened. Seeing this, she tries not to try and gets an almost out-of-body experience. At this time, she travels back to her memory of breaking up with Sam. The shock of getting hit by another vehicle shocks her back to reality, where Sam tosses the keys on the table. And this time, when she cuts the carrot, she still cuts herself. Jacob suddenly appears, amazed at how Alma altered the timeline. This prompts him to tell her everything. Jacob brings her to a memory of when he was young, and Geraldine is singing as she cleans. When Jacob asks about the tune, she claims to have heard it in a dream, but their discussion cuts when Sam moves the couch. Seeing this, Alma confronts him about their breakup. Surprised, Sam asked if it was Becca who told her. He then infodumps how Becca slept with the bartender. Alma tries to ground herself in the shock of such a revelation and finds herself transported to an old memory of her family's trip to Mexico. She discovers that her dad brought her there, but she's still reeling from finding the truth of her relationship with Sam. So instead of staying there, Alma returns to reality and argues with Sam about how he secretly moved his stuff back into the apartment while she was still in the hospital. She's furious, not just because he lied, but because he made a huge decision on her behalf without her consent. When Sam tries to talk to her through the bedroom door, Alma removes her speech processor. During this time, she is pulled to her memory of how she became deaf and entered a school for children like her. Her first day there is a happy memory. However, she is again forcefully pulled back to the memory of their family trip and reasons with her dad. Jacob understands her, but he also points out how happiness can be an escape. A bit fed up, Alma gives it a chance and sees how she interacts with the natives who sing a song. The melody reminds Jacob of his mother, who used to hum it. Hearing this, the native suggests that Jacob's mother must be a priestess who didn't receive guidance. This sparks Jacob to research the minds of those with abilities similar to those of priestesses and shamans. His study soon reveals that they indeed have a similar brain structure to those with schizophrenia. When Alma asks if he ever experimented on her, her mind shifts to her memory of getting a cochlear implant. This eventually leads her to change schools and say goodbye to her best friend. Alma returns to reality and replugs her cochlear implant. Continuing her argument with Sam, she enters the bathroom and inadvertently peeks into Sam's past. There, she realizes how similar their life experiences are. Back to reality, Jacob advises Alma on relationships, and she takes it negatively. However, this also leads her to understand how she really feels for Sam. Recalling their past and seeing how Sam really feels for her, Alma finally confronts her feelings and forgives Sam. With their relationship stronger and Sam's reassurance, Alma decides to be honest. She suddenly reveals that she can see her dead father and that she's training to time travel so that she can save her dad from dying. Sam defies Alma's negative thoughts by not leaving. He even proves himself reliable by helping her investigate Jacob's death. Meanwhile, Camila's active participation in church activities inspires the priest to let her light the Easter candle. When asked about her daughters, Camila admits her struggle with Alma. The priest offers to speak to Alma himself. Returning to the couple, they start looking into Jacob's workplace. They talk to Nancy, the building's security guard, about the break-in on the night of Jacob's death. The guard initially refuses. However, Alma experiences Nancy's entire life in a vision and emotionally connects with her. This bond prompts Nancy to provide the break-in records and allows them to take photos. Meanwhile, Camila invites both her daughters to join her in the Easter Vigil Mass. However, Becca can't make it. Later, Alma arrives in time for the candle lighting. She stays through the service, though she's distracted by thoughts of a cave. After the Mass, the priest gently brings up Camila's concerns about Alma's mental health. Offended, Alma reveals what her mom did behind her back. Surprisingly, the priest takes Alma's side and says Camila has to respect her choices. In the end, this matter only further sours the relationship between mother and daughter. That night, Alma returns home and Sam quickly closes a video of Jacob doing a suspicious ceremony. He tries to dissuade Alma because of his recent discovery, but she remains adamant about pursuing this. Becca's wedding day finally arrives. However, this coincides with Alma's appointment to meet her dad's research sponsor from before. So, in between preparing and taking pictures, Alma meets with Charlie, the main suspect in her father's eyes. Using a fake account to arrange a meeting, she meets him at the same hotel hosting her sister's wedding. Alma confronts him about Jacob. Upon realizing who she is, Charles claims Jacob's research was a meaningless dead end. Soon, Alma leaves him and returns late to Becca and Reed's photo session. However, in a moment of emotional overload, Alma blurts out that Becca slept with someone else after her engagement. This causes a scene that everyone there hears. But before the damage settles, Alma quickly rewinds time to undo the damage. She fixes her mistake and Jacob appears again. Her performance proves her to be ready. He believes that once his daughter saves him, they can return to that exact moment together. After making up her mind, Alma jumps to the past and looks around. Her dad isn't there. After a moment, she sees a car dropping towards her. Jacob shakes her back to reality. The experience overwhelms Alma, who realizes she's not strong enough to do it. Returning to the party, Alma learns that Becca has disappeared. She eventually finds her sister crying in a stairwell, torn by the guilt of her previous actions. Becca wants to confess everything to Reed, but Alma tells her to wait and simply enjoy that day. With that, the wedding proceeds without too much drama. At the venue, Alma stumbles upon an indigenous dance. Outside, she meets one of the dancers taking a break. The dancer shares a cigarette and discusses the ritual meant to honor ancestors. She tells Alma that even if she doesn't know the dance, it's inside her. Later, Alma takes that to heart and begins dancing at the wedding party. The rhythm and movement ground her. Even after the wedding, she continues, she dances in the street, at home, and even at the daycare. It is then that she sees herself and Jacob reflected in a mirror on Halloween night. Without hesitating, Alma leaps into the reflection, determined to change the past. Soon, Alma reaches the night that started it all. She quickly hides with her present dad when they hear young Alma with her dad approach. Older Alma's Jacob is surprised to be there. Alma explains how she summoned him using a traditional dance of their ancestors. Impressed but focused, Jacob insists they must carefully observe the night before taking any action. They follow past Jacob to his lab, where they find it being ransacked by his wife, Camila. She looks for Alma there, knowing how Jacob had secretly run brain scans on Alma as a child. Before Camila leaves, she tells him to get out of their lives. Present, Alma and Jacob watch the past as he reveals his main goal of helping his mother with his research. Jacob's research partner is stunned. She honestly thought Camila knew about the tests. When Camila finally leaves, Jacob offers to drive his assistant home, forgetting about Alma, who is waiting the entire time. Suddenly, the scene shifts back to the day Alma got into a car accident. Apparently, Jacob now remembers the memory he blocked. At his realization, he urges Alma to return to her life, instructing her on where to stop to reset and forget everything. However, Alma refuses and forcefully brings herself back to the past when the accident happened. There, she learns of the immense pressure her dad was in, and how this leads him to drive off the road along with his unwilling assistant. Alma halts time while mid-air, and Jacob makes her see that he's not worth saving. Alma rejects this, saying they'll figure it out and Jacob can try, but not try. Once again, Alma rewinds time to the moment before Jacob leaves her. He tells her that they will meet again once the timeline realigns. Alma sees the point in time that he's referring to. This time, to stop the past Jacob from repeating the same mistake, present Jacob forces his consciousness into the past him. Successful, Jacob stays this time and ignores the incoming work call. Back in the present, Alma wakes up at the daycare with a gash on her head. With how unstable she is, her boss finally fires her. Alma shrugs it off and returns home to pack. There, she tells Sam she's leaving to wait for her dad in Mexico. However, Camila appears after receiving Sam's call. Feeling betrayed, Alma tells Sam that when she resets the timeline, they'll never have met. Outside, Camila reveals to Alma that Jacob was diagnosed with schizophrenia before his death. However, Alma believes everything she has experienced. So she takes her mom's keys and drives to a cave in Mexico to wait for her dad. Becca eventually joins her, and Alma learns that Becca's marriage just ended after telling Reed the truth. After some time, the weight gets to Alma. She tries to hold on to her belief, but she starts losing hope. In the end, Alma promises to return home, but only after making sure that their dad isn't coming out of that cave. Becca promises to help Alma through this and gives her a moment alone. As the sun rises, Alma stares into the light, and what she sees in the light is left unclear. The second season begins right where season 1 ends. Alma waits outside the cave in Mexico, hoping her father will appear. Just when Alma's about to give up, the cave crackles with a strange light. Seeing this, she steps inside, only to find nothing. When Alma exits the cave, she meets an old woman who encourages her that it's not too late to change things. It is then that Alma realizes that everything there is different. Her car's gone, Becca is on her honeymoon with Reed, and their dad is alive. Alma now sees the world as a magical place, and she bids farewell to the old woman she just met. Alma heads straight home and finds Camila sobbing quietly in the kitchen. When she asks, her mom says she's fine and directs her to her dad's office. While Jacob works calmly in his office, Alma enters and tells him about the realignment of timelines. Jacob, now obviously older, hugs his daughter and explains what happened. After merging with his other self, he waited for this version of Alma to arrive. Soon, Alma's consciousness finally catches up and starts gaining memories of the Alma there. It is as if she's always been part of that timeline. Through her dad, Alma discovers she's a professor, fluent in Spanish, a pianist, and is currently writing her PhD dissertation. In her dad's office, Alma finds an album of Geraldine. So, Jacob shares his findings about his mother. Recalling her dad's main goal, Alma suggests traveling back in time to learn about Geraldine's past. Jacob dissuades her on this, but Alma stubbornly tries not to try. She soon finds herself in a fog, falling fast to the ground. As she screams for her dad, she returns to the present, realizing she lacks the ability in this timeline. Jacob tells her to focus on the life they've built there instead. So, she heads home, trying out her piano playing skills. She looks up Sam, realizing he has a different girlfriend in that timeline. She goes on with her daily life with the guidance of her dad, but later realizes that it is not much different from her boring daily life in the previous timeline. During a family dinner night with the newlyweds, their mom takes a call. Alma suddenly finds herself in a memory of her mom getting out of another man's car. Upon returning to reality, Alma goes to the bathroom and tries to use her ability without much success. She shares this with her dad, but Jacob insists that Alma should stop. And despite bringing up how her mom is acting strangely, Jacob tells Alma to leave it alone. He doesn't want Alma messing with that timeline and jeopardizing what they've built. Unable to get through to her dad, Alma talks with Becca and learns that the memory relating to their mother belongs to her. At the thought, the memory resurfaces where Camila tells Alejandro to leave. After the memory ends, the sisters talk, and Alma learns that in that timeline, Becca has the ability to time travel. Excited, Alma says they can do this together. Alma finds herself falling through the fog again. Only this time, she drops to the ground where there is a locked door. She tries forcing her way to it and finds herself back in reality, just outside Becca's house. Since she's already there, Alma tries to convince Becca to help her. She pulls Becca through the fog where they fall and reach the closed wooden door. Despite Alma's excitement, Becca doesn't want to get involved, so she leaves. At home, Jacob confronts Camila about a mysterious $5,000 loan. She claims it's for a cousin in Mexico, but it doesn't quite add up. When Alma asks her father about it, he brushes her off, telling her not to dig. So, naturally, Alma digs. Alma heads to the attic and finds a painting of Camila. When she shows it to Becca, they notice a poetic inscription signed by someone named Alejandro. Alma shares with Becca her discovery of Camila wiring money to Mexico, and the sisters can't help thinking that Alejandro is blackmailing Camila. When Alma suggests time traveling to discover the truth, Becca still doesn't want to alter anything, insisting that her life is perfect. However, that illusion cracks when Reed finds her birth control pills. Though Becca swears they're from before their marriage, Reed doesn't look convinced. Later that evening, Alma finds Becca outside her house, feeling down. After sharing a drink, Alma begins playing the Rainbow Song, a childhood song based on the tune Geraldine used to hum. The melody opens Becca's memory, and she flashes back to moments when their parents would argue, especially over something linked to Mexico. Even as kids, they could sense that something wasn't right. Now, armed with a name and a painting, the sisters wonder if they could stop Camila from ever meeting Alejandro if they travel back to the past. But before they go with that move, they march over to confront their mother. Fueled by wine and emotion, they accuse her of having an affair. They present her with the evidence, the painting, money transfers, and long-distance calls. Furious at their accusations, Camila kicks them out. Seeing this, Jacob calls his daughters to his office. There, they finally tell him the truth about Becca having the same powers and everything they've uncovered. But before anything else can be said, they hear a loud crash outside. They all go out to find Camila driving off. Stunned, Jacob turns to Alma, asking what she has done. Things start unraveling fast. Reality distorts to a memory, and Becca sees the scene where their dad is in a car driving. Becca gets overwhelmed by the emotions, so Alma quickly grounds her, and they return to reality. To cover up for her dad, Alma claims that the car scene isn't a memory, but their dad's fear of Camila leaving. Returning to the problem concerning Camila, they learn that she has booked a one-way ticket to Mexico. Jacob downplays it as a routine family visit, except no one can reach her. When Camila ignores their calls, the sisters contact their family in Mexico, hoping for answers. But their grandmother hasn't heard from Camila either, so they pack their bags and head south to investigate. At their grandmother's house in Mexico, Alma shows her the mysterious painting of Camila by Alejandro. Their grandmother claims not to recognize the name, but the scene suddenly shifts to a market. Realizing it's their grandmother's memory, the sisters soon return to the present. Unable to gain information from their grandmother, they turn to their aunt, Tia Monse. At their urging, Monse tells them about Camila's secret relationship from the past. With the sisters' ability, they see this past where Camila exchanges handwritten letters with her lover. Monse acts as their go-between, but everything falls apart when one letter is intercepted. Camila is then forbidden from seeing him again and becomes devastated by the breakup. With this information, they visit the man in their mother's past, hoping they can find her through him. He denies any knowledge of her whereabouts, so Becca searches his memories. They soon confirm that the man speaks the truth. They return to their grandmother, thinking that her memory might be the path they're looking for. They discuss what they've found with her. As the emotions build, they return to their grandmother's buried memory. In it, she follows a young Camila to the house featured in the painting. There, their grandmother accuses Camila and disowns her. Though overwhelmed with sorrow, they soon leave the memory to track their mother's location. Finding the same house, they knock on the door, but before it opens, Becca collapses right outside the door. The door swings open to reveal the old woman whom Alma previously met outside the cave. Alma soon learns the old woman's name is Rosario Alejandro, the painter behind their mother's portrait, and that Camila is also staying there. At their dad's insistent calling, Alma finally calls him back, informing him of what happened with Becca. Hearing this, Jacob insists on following them there. As for Becca, Rosario says she needs grounding. Her words clearly imply her knowledge of time traveling. Rosario reveals herself as a curandera, also known as a healer. She shares with Alma her first meeting with Camila years ago and how she offered help. This is how Camila ended up staying there while trying to mend her broken heart. As Alma tries to make sense of it all, the fog returns. Rosario gently nudges Alma to consider that the locked door in her mind might be something that Alma is afraid to face. When Alma shows this door to Rosario, she explains how much she tried to open it. When Rosario tells her to try to be quiet, Alma finally hears muffled crying behind it. Meanwhile, Becca begins to stir. Still disoriented, she sees a crying baby in her room and carries it to calm it down. At the sound of knocking, Becca opens the door to her father. However, the baby in her arms suddenly disappears. With Jacob's arrival, his presence triggers an argument. However, unlike Alma and Jacob, Becca continues to see visions of a crying baby. Seeing Becca a bit out of it, Alma takes the argument outside. Jacob still refuses to destroy the current time flow despite Alma's reassurance. But his memories soon shake him as they break through his present. He recalls moments with Camila, glimpses of when they first met, and the heaviness she carried from the very beginning. That night, Jacob finally admits to knowing Camila has been hiding something for a long time, but he chooses not to pry. Meanwhile, Becca continues to be caught between the past and the present. Through her abilities, Camila's secret begins to surface. It appears that Camila gave up a child years ago. She learns that the child's name is Alejandro, named after Rosario Alejandro, the woman who took her in. Becca shares her discovery with Jacob and Alma. As he recalls all those times he didn't push Camila into telling the truth, Jacob announces they should look for her. Jacob, Alma, and Becca head off together in search of Alejandro. They track down the house expecting to meet a stranger, but it's Camila who opens the door. When Becca sees Alejandro, the scene jumps backward to fill in Alejandro's past. He grew up in the orphanage, later working in the oil fields, breathing in toxic dust and silica that eventually damaged his lungs. Somewhere along the way, he gets Camila's number, and they begin to reconnect over phone calls. When Camila and Alejandro finally meet in person, their embrace is warm but heavy. Alejandro wants to meet his half-sisters, but Camila isn't ready, and their relationship doesn't move past holiday cards and occasional meetings. As time passes, Alejandro's coughing worsens. So he visits Camila at her house to tell her about how the doctors found scarring in his lungs. The condition is serious, and he needs tissue samples taken. As his mother, he asks Camila to come with him for support. Camila hesitates, considering that Becca's wedding is approaching. She promises to send money for the surgery instead, and urges him to leave. But this encounter still changes Camila. Between her daughters confronting the truth and Alejandro's worsening health, Camila decides to fly to Mexico to be with him. Now the entire family finds themselves in Alejandro's place, and the truth is out in the open. Jacob apologizes to Camila for not noticing and for not making space for the truth. When Alma asks about why their mom kept Alejandro a secret, Camila shares a bit of her past and how she felt when she lost him. She then reveals how she intended to adopt Alejandro, but she ended up not going forward with it. Alejandro staggers upon learning that his mother actually had the chance to keep him. The truth cuts him deep and asks everyone to leave. In the hallway, the family learns from Camila that she didn't push with the adoption because of Geraldine. As Camila speaks of this, the fog eats at their surrounding and Alma sees the door again. Hearing the crying, she immediately tells Becca. She urges Becca to go back in time so that they can stop Jacob's mother, Geraldine, from discouraging Camila from adopting Alejandro. Becca finally agrees and opens a portal, but she's not accompanying Alma this time. Alma soon lands in the hospital, but realizes it's the wrong time. Mistaken for a patient, she is pulled into a room, and Alma's now trapped. Alma tries to use the fog to escape and fails. She even does her old method of dancing, but still fails. Stuck there, Alma wanders the facility and stumbles on Geraldine, Jacob's mother. Alma pleads for help, realizing this is the same Geraldine who convinced Camila to give up Alejandro. But when Alma talks of time traveling, Geraldine gets defensive and claims she stopped all that. Alma doesn't give up. She plays the Rainbow song on the piano, hoping it will reach Geraldine. It works because Geraldine recognizes the tune. Just as she teaches the song to Geraldine, a portal back to the present opens, so Alma quickly escapes from there. Back in their own timeline, Alma and Becca regroup, hoping to fix the family's damage. However, things only worsen when Camila tells Jacob she wants a divorce. Alma, unwilling to accept this future, pushes to travel through time together. They can't reach an agreement, so Alma wants Becca to at least learn the truth. When Jacob finally admits his horrid past to Becca, this makes her believe in the possibility of fixing everything. The trio agrees to travel back to the past when Jacob and Camila visit Geraldine in the hospital. Geraldine sees them, but doesn't say anything. From the couch, they watch Geraldine and Camila connect. Camila soon opens up about adopting her son, Alejandro. At first, Geraldine listens intently. Then, she quietly suggests that Camila should leave the child behind. She speaks from experience, giving a chilling echo of the past. After Camila leaves, Jacob sits down with his mother. He apologizes for abandoning her in the past and urges her to reconsider. Alma and Becca also approach. Seeing Geraldine's art collage on the table, Alma points to a piece apart from the others. At that moment, the three suddenly go through the fog, straight to Alma's locked door. Upon listening closely, Alma realizes that the voice isn't Alejandro's. The crying voice belongs to Geraldine. This time, they knock on the door and call Geraldine by her birth name, Rochelle. Jacob gently calls out to her, asking her to open up. Soon, the door opens before them. Behind the door stands a young Geraldine. It turns out that this holds Geraldine's past, so they travel into it. There, they learn that Geraldine's mother works as a soothsayer, reading futures in bowls of water. One day, a soldier demands a reading. Unable to refuse because of the man's status, Geraldine's mother reads his future while Geraldine, still in training, watches closely. They end up not saying the man's future, claiming they can't help him. But in light of what happened, Geraldine's family destroys any ability-related books and items as they prepare to leave the country. However, the bowl that can aid them in looking into the future is not destroyed. Young Geraldine uses it and sees a terrible future. She can only say a few words of warning before her father destroys the bowl and instructs her to fetch the broom from the shed. Heading out, Geraldine's memory ends there. She brings Jacob and the others to where the other Geraldines are. Beyond the fog, a warped structure of stairs with fragmented rooms appears. Each room holds a version of Geraldine, but none of them can accept the little girl she once was. They walk through her memories to seek answers from these Geraldines. However, the repeated rejection gets to them. To resolve the issue, they visit one memory without young Geraldine. In that particular memory, Jacob's mother lashes out at them and smashes a TV. Seeing this, young Jacob throws a baseball at the TV, saying he will shoulder the responsibility for it so that his mom won't go away again. Desperate, Jacob gets an idea and enters his young body to speak to his mother. For a moment, she begins to open up. And this leads to a vision of Geraldine in a red coat, the same one she wore when she fled the country. The scene sparks young Geraldine's memory, making her finally recall what happened. After she goes to the shed, some soldiers appear to take them. Unable to do anything, young Geraldine can only watch as they take her parents. Blaming herself, she waits for them to return, but in the end, she eventually escapes the country, carrying a guilt she can never let go of. Seeing her blame herself, Jacob tries to change the memory, but nothing he does works. His attempts begin to destroy him. Alma steps in by bringing an older version of Geraldine with her. She makes Geraldine take action for the sake of her son. However, the path isn't exactly about fixing Geraldine's past mistake. Together, they gently encourage young Geraldine to accept her past. And one by one, all the Geraldines from other memories appear and embrace her. In that moment of unity, everything shifts. Geraldine, now fully herself, embraces her original name, Rochelle. This one point of change in Geraldine's life changes everyone's lives. It deletes the hospital timeline. The family adopts Alejandro. Their family grows together. Alma's Halloween night memory is replaced with a bonding with her brother. They get new family members, and when Rochelle eventually passes, the family lights a candle in her memory. Their new family gathers under one roof, celebrating a life healed across timelines. But flickers of past visions haunt Alma. Something in her gut tells her the work isn't finished. Becca, however, is content in this new reality and disagrees. That night, a phone call shatters the peace, and they learn Jacob suffers a stroke. At the hospital, Camila explains how he's paralyzed on one side, unable to speak. Unsure of what to do, they can only wait. When Jacob finally wakes, Alma apologizes and blames herself for letting him get worn out from saving Rochelle. Alma feels they can turn time back again, but Jacob says she can't undo this one. He signs to Alma that changing his mother's life is the greatest gift that Alma gave him, and he doesn't want to change that. Later, Rosario visits their house to help Jacob heal. During her visit, she asks Alma about her door. Alma shares what they found behind the door and how this healed their family. Rosario smiles, but still asks if Alma is sure there's nothing else behind the door. Rosario's question unsettles her. As Alma is about to take some towels from the closet, the door won't budge. After forcing it open, she sees the fog, young Rochelle, young Alejandro, and her past self waiting outside the cave. Instead of dwelling on this, Alma focuses on the fact that she doesn't want to lose her father again. Knowing his daughter's good intentions, Jacob shares with them his experience of receiving a visit from his mother, Rochelle. She tells him he'll join her soon. Jacob admits he's scared, but he's also aware that death isn't the end. In a sense, he's ready. However, Alma continues resisting. She jumps through time, talking to herself, seeking a way out to save her dad. Soon, she wakes in reality because of a call. Waking up, she sees a thick fog filling the area before her bed. There, she sees her father, accompanied by Rochelle and her parents. Smiling, Jacob waves to her and turns to leave. At that moment, Alma finally learns to accept. Jacob peacefully passes away. At the wake, Alma speaks of her father and their family. Then she uses Becca's words on how bad things will happen and how they have to find ways to move forward together. However, this is not the end of Alma's journey. She continues to have trouble with her door. That same night, the dark bowl from their grandmother suddenly floats in the air. Becca and Alma peer into it and see the past Alma waiting for her father. As they see through it, they see how that Alma suffers through the pain of having her family see her as someone with a mental illness. Alma realizes that her old self never got closure and is still stuck, lost in grief. And the future of that Alma is filled with despair. Alma now sees the final step. For her to truly heal, she has to return to her original timeline. Becca disagrees, but Alma makes her realize that past Alma needs her. Alma spends the rest of her time with her family. She tells her mom how much she loves her and embraces her. That night, Becca accompanies Alma as she finally opens the door to one last portal. Becca holds her back for a last goodbye before she goes through the fog back to her original timeline. Now back, Alma sees Becca standing outside by the car on the phone. Alma approaches her, steady and changed. She talks to her mom and Sam on the phone as she looks back at the cave. Soon, she and Becca leave. In the car mirror, Alma sees the cave and a figure walking towards it. She gives the cave one last look before facing forward. When Becca asks her if she wants to go back, Alma chooses to go home. The series of Undone ends there. We finally made it through Alma's mind-bending life as she strives to become the best version of herself. Just imagine, if you were Alma, could you do the same thing and turn your back on that near-perfect life you've wanted all your life? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and we'll see you in the next video.